Oh, my mother was a very gregarious woman. She was head of the church group for 25 or 30 years, and those women loved her. My mother did not cut her hair, and I have a picture of her with her hair all the way down to her backside. She never really cut it. She wore it in a bun like women did in those days. And I don't believe she cut it for like a perm until she was maybe 60. And she was always sort of stout when I knew her, because when she was pregnant with me and her mother lived across the road, her mother didn't know she was pregnant until 3 weeks before I was born. My mother was born in 1885, so when she was 17, after going to normal school, she went as a teacher to Havelock and was in a one-room school with boys that were 16 because they'd been out on the farm and didn't pass their grades, so it was kind of interesting when they took her on buggy rides. Then she came back to Toronto and got a job teaching at Annette Street Public School, and she lived with her mother 291 Evelyn Avenue up near St. John's Road in the Junction. In 1904, my father moved from Richmond Hill. He was a widower and moved at 292 Evelyn, right across the road from where my mother lived, and he taught at Humberside. When they went to work, they both walked down Evelyn Avenue along Annette Street. She went into Annette Street School. He continued on to Humberside. So they had quite a relationship. Plus, both sang in the High Park United Church Choir. To make a long story short, romance blossomed. And when he was 40 and she was 24, they married. My grandmother was not too happy about that because she was only 50. She could have married him. In those days, and up until very recently in time span, once you were married, you no longer could teach. So my mother raised her family without working. My mother and father had 5 children. The eldest was a boy who, when he was 12, probably caught rheumatic fever. He died when I was 7 months old. So I think they didn't want to stay in that house. So she was pushing me in the pram, putting in time, I suppose, after he died. And she walked down High Park Avenue and saw this nice house for sale at the corner of High Park and Glen Lake. So she went back to my dad. So he went down to see it, I don't know how many days later, very, very shortly, and said, "Oh, I'll take it." And he told me he never regretted it, even though it was more expensive than he should have taken on. But he never regretted it because it was a happy home. My father, as I say, taught at Humberside and had to retire when he got to be, I think they gave him an extra 2 years. He was 67 when he retired. Now, in those days, when you retired, you got half your salary. His salary tops was $3,600. So when he retired, he only got $1,800. Well, as time went on, he got ill with a heart condition and died at 75. This is 1944. The contract said that when the spouse died, the widows were cut off. No pension whatsoever. There had been a new contract instigated, but women in the old contract, they had no pension. Some of these women were so poor that they were living in garrets. And that teachers' organization, because they were in that old contract, would not give them a cent. They went to the ministry, they lobbied here, they lobbied there. Finally, after several years, and I could remember it, they finally gave them $25 a month. She didn't have enough money. She couldn't go to work when my father died. What would she do? She didn't have any marketable skills that you would know about. So she had to take in roomers. And I was a teenager, and we were in a 4-bedroom house with a center hall plan. And I was in a bedroom here, and across the hall were roomers. And that's tough. And when we were married, we were the roomers. We went into 2 rooms up in her upstairs So I was there for 4 years. And it's awful to have your mother across the hall. You can't have a good fight with your husband if your mother's across the hall. When she was going to be buried in High Park United Church, my father and my mother were stalwart supporters of that church. Anyway, we're going up the stairs to the funeral in the church, and I'm walking beside the funeral director. Now, my mother had died at 81, and we just had one evening of visitation with a closed casket. So all these women came to see this, and they laughed, because they remember all the fun they had had. So I'm walking up the stairs to the church, and the funeral director says, "Boy, you people certainly had a good time last night, didn't you?" And I said, "Yes," and she'd have loved it if she could have sat up and joined them. She was a nice woman, lots of fun, very generous with her house, and she would throw parties, and yeah, she was good. With a big laugh, too.